Have you ever felt small, not just short but truly small on the inside? Have you ever felt like you were invisible, lost in a crowd of people who seemed taller, stronger, and better than you? Perhaps you have felt the sting of whispers behind your back, or the cold shoulder of someone who has already made up their mind about you. It is a lonely feeling, isn't it? To be known for your mistakes instead of your heart. It can make you want to hide, to climb up high where no one can reach you just so you can feel safe for a little while. This is a story about a man who knew that feeling all too well. His name was Zacchaeus, and he was very, very small. Zacchaeus lived in a busy town called Jericho. He was not just small in height, he felt small in the eyes of his neighbors. He had a very important job. He was a chief tax collector. This job made him incredibly rich. He had a beautiful house, fine clothes, and more money than he could ever spend. But all the gold coins in his home could not buy him what he truly wanted: respect and friendship. The people of Jericho did not see a successful man when they looked at him. They saw a traitor. They saw a man who worked for their enemies, the Romans, and they believed he was a thief who took more than he was supposed to. In those days, tax collectors were not liked at all. They were seen as dishonest men who got rich by cheating their own people. They would take money from hardworking families to give to the Roman rulers, and often, they would demand extra for themselves. Because of this, nobody trusted Zacchaeus. When he walked through the marketplace, people would turn away. Children would stop their games and stare. Mothers would pull their little ones close, as if his shadow might bring them bad luck. Zacchaeus had a big house, but it was an empty house. He had many possessions, but he had no friends to share them with. He was surrounded by people, yet he was completely and utterly alone. This deep loneliness carved a hole in Zacchaeus' heart. Every clink of a coin in his money bag was a reminder of what he had lost. He had chosen wealth, but in doing so, he had built a wall around himself. He could hear the laughter from other homes, the sounds of families sharing meals and stories, and it only made his own silence louder. He longed to be seen, not for the money he collected or the job he did, but for the person he was on the inside. He wondered if anyone would ever look past his reputation. He wondered if he could ever be anything more than the short, cheating tax collector everyone despised. He felt stuck, small, and utterly hopeless. One sunny morning, a ripple of excitement spread through the dusty streets of Jericho like a fresh breeze. People were closing their shops and leaving their homes, their faces filled with anticipation and wonder. A name was being whispered from person to person, passed along with hurried words and wide eyes. Jesus, the famous teacher, the man who could heal the sick and make the blind see, was coming to their town. The air buzzed with energy. Everyone wanted to catch a glimpse of this man who spoke of love and forgiveness. For many it was a chance to hear words of hope. For Zacchaeus, it was a spark in the darkness of his lonely world. This news reached Zacchaeus and something stirred within him. He had heard the stories about Jesus. He heard that Jesus didn't turn people away. He heard that Jesus spoke to fishermen, to the poor, and even to those whom society had cast aside. Could it be true? Could there be someone who wouldn't judge him based on his job? A flicker of hope ignited in Zacchaeus' heart. He had to see this man. He felt a pull, a deep and urgent need to see the face of the one who offered a different kind of riches, a richness of the soul that all his money could not buy. He left his counting table and his bags of coins and joined the growing crowd. As he pushed his way into the throng, Zacchaeus' hope quickly turned to frustration. The streets were packed. People were everywhere, standing shoulder to shoulder, all craning their necks to see. And Zacchaeus had a problem he had dealt with his entire life. He was too short. He stood on his tiptoes, but all he could see were the backs of taller men. He tried to squeeze through a gap, but someone roughly pushed him aside. "Get back, tax collector!" a man grumbled, not even looking at him. Once again he was reminded of how small he was, how insignificant he seemed to everyone else. He was on the outside looking in, just as he always was. Disappointment washed over him. He was so close, yet so far away. It seemed impossible. The crowd was a solid wall and he was too small to see over it. He could hear Jesus' voice, a calm and gentle sound carried on the wind, but he could not see the face of the speaker. For a moment, he thought about giving up and returning to his empty house, but the hope that had sparked within him refused to be extinguished. He was not going to let his height or the opinions of the crowd stop him this time. He looked around, his mind racing, searching for any possible solution. He was determined. He had to see Jesus. Just ahead, past the edge of the dense crowd, Zacchaeus spotted his answer. A large sycamore fig tree stood by the side of the road, its strong, low branches reaching out like open arms. It was the very path Jesus was taking. A brilliant idea popped into his head. It was a silly idea, really. A rich, important man like him, climbing a tree like a little boy? People would surely laugh and point. They would mock him and call him a fool. For a moment he hesitated. The thought of more ridicule was painful. But the desire to see Jesus was stronger than his fear of being laughed at. He had to take the chance. Without a second thought, Zacchaeus gathered his robes and ran towards the tree. He didn't care who was watching. He forgot about his dignity, his wealth, and his reputation. All that mattered was getting a better view. He grabbed onto the lowest branch and pulled himself up, his fine clothes getting snagged and dusty. He scrambled higher and higher from one sturdy limb to the next until he found a perfect spot. From his perch in the sycamore tree he could see everything. He could see over the heads of the entire crowd. And there, walking down the road, surrounded by his followers, was Jesus. From his leafy vantage point, Zacchaeus watched, his heart pounding in his chest. Jesus didn't look like a king or a powerful ruler. He looked kind. He walked with a gentle confidence, and the people around him listened to every word he said. Zacchaeus felt a strange sense of peace just by looking at him. He was hidden in the leaves, an anonymous observer. He thought he was safe and unseen, just another face in the background. He was content just to watch from a distance, to finally see the man who had brought so much hope into the town, and into his own heart. He never imagined what would happen next. As Jesus drew nearer to the tree, he suddenly stopped. The crowd stopped with him, a hush falling over them. Jesus looked up. His eyes scanned the branches, passing over the leaves until they rested directly on Zacchaeus. It was as if no one else was there. In that moment, Zacchaeus was not a tax collector. He was not a cheat. He was not a short man hiding in a tree. He was simply a person, seen and known by Jesus. The world seemed to stand still as Jesus looked right into his eyes, and then he smiled. Zacchaeus felt as though the warmth of that smile reached all the way into the coldest, loneliest corners of his heart. Then, the impossible happened. Jesus spoke, and his voice was clear and kind. "Zacchaeus!" he called out. Zacchaeus nearly fell out of the tree. How did he know his name? No one had told him. No one had pointed him out. Yet Jesus knew his name. It was a name that most people spat out with disgust, but when Jesus said it, it sounded like a song. And then Jesus said something even more astonishing. "Hurry and come down," he said, still smiling up at him, "for I must stay at your house today." The crowd gasped. A wave of murmurs and disbelief rippled through the people standing below. The shock on the faces of the crowd was plain to see. Jesus wanted to go to Zacchaeus' house, the home of a sinner, a man who cheated them and worked for their oppressors. They began to grumble amongst themselves. "He has gone to be the guest of a man who is a sinner," they muttered, shaking their heads in disapproval. They couldn't understand it. They saw Zacchaeus as unworthy, as someone to be avoided, not visited. Their judgment was a thick cloud, but Jesus paid them no mind. His invitation was not for them. It was for the small man in the tree, the one everyone else had written off. Zacchaeus scrambled down from the tree as fast as he could. He didn't care about the whispers or the angry looks from the crowd. All he could think about were the words of Jesus. "I must stay at your house today." Joy, pure and overwhelming, flooded his entire being. He, Zacchaeus, the despised tax collector, had been chosen. He had been seen. He had been called by name. He landed on the ground and rushed to welcome Jesus, his heart overflowing with a happiness he had never known. He led Jesus towards his home, not with the pride of a rich man, but with the humble gratitude of a lost soul who had just been found. This invitation was more than just a visit for a meal. It was an act of grace. Jesus didn't wait for Zacchaeus to become a better person before showing him love. He met him right where he was, perched in a tree, full of flaws and surrounded by judgment. Jesus looked past the angry crowd, past the title of sinner, and saw a man with a heart that was ready for a change. He saw someone who was searching for hope. By choosing to enter Zacchaeus' home, Jesus was showing everyone that no one is beyond the reach of God's love. He was building a bridge to the loneliest man in Jericho. Standing there in his own home, in the presence of Jesus, something inside Zacchaeus broke open. It was the hard shell he had built around his heart. The warmth of Jesus' acceptance melted away years of greed, loneliness, and shame. He looked at the man who had seen him when he felt invisible, and he knew he could not stay the same. In a powerful, life-altering moment, Zacchaeus stood up straight, not just in his body, but in his spirit. He looked at Jesus and made a bold declaration, his voice ringing with newfound conviction for all to hear. He was a new man, and he wanted everyone to know it. "Look, Lord," Zacchaeus proclaimed, "here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor." This was a stunning promise. The man who had spent his life accumulating wealth was now giving it away freely. But he didn't stop there. He knew he needed to make things right for the people he had wronged. "And if I have cheated anybody out of anything," he continued, "I will pay back 4 times the amount." This was more than the law required. This was the sound of a truly changed heart. It was a heart that was no longer empty, but was now so full of grace that it overflowed into generosity and justice. Jesus listened to Zacchaeus' words, and his face beamed with joy. He turned to the others who had followed them into the house, their faces still etched with doubt. "Today, salvation has come to this house," Jesus announced, "because this man too is a son of Abraham." With these words, Jesus welcomed Zacchaeus back into the community, restoring the dignity that had been stolen from him. Jesus then explained his own mission, the very reason he had come, for the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. He had come for people just like Zacchaeus, who felt lost and forgotten. The story of Zacchaeus is for all of us who have ever felt small, overlooked, or defined by our mistakes. It is a beautiful reminder that Jesus sees you, he knows your name, he sees you when you are trying to hide, when you feel you are not good enough, and when you think you are too far gone. He doesn't wait for you to fix yourself. He comes to you right where you are and invites you into a new life. His love is what changes us from the inside out. All we have to do is be willing to climb down from our own tree and welcome him in.